Hi everyone, welcome to Uncorking Retirement, where we demystify your retirement journey. I'm your host, Alex Newman, the founder of Grape Wealth Management. So today we're going to go over an old 401k and some options that you have to take care of it. And so I'm going to go over 6 specific routes that you could take, so follow along with me. All right, Grape Wealth Management. We are a fiduciary wealth management advisory firm, and we specialize specifically in retirement. So if you guys have any questions around your specific scenario, I urge you to go to investgrape.com and schedule an appointment with us. We'll be more than happy to help you out. So 6 different things that you can do with your old 401k. So today we'll be covering leaving it alone, so leaving it at your previous employer, rolling it over to your new employer plan. So if you did not retire and you went to a new company, rolling it over there, opting for an IRA rollover. So that would be rolling it into an individual retirement account, also known as an IRA, cashing it out. Normally I don't recommend this, but we'll be going over what are some consequences in the event that you just decide to take the funds. 5, consider a Roth conversion. So Roth conversions are absolutely amazing, but they don't make sense for everyone's scenario. So we'll be going over the reasons why that may or may not be a good idea for you. And then last but not least is seeking expert advice. All right, so leaving it with your previous employer. Now, I know this may sound like an easy route. You may say, hey, Alex, I had those funds there for a very long time and they've done absolutely amazing. But I urge you to really open the hood, look further into it, and make sure that it is still aligned with your specific scenario. Now, I always like to say that one of the biggest benefits of having a 401k is that a lot of times the employer will match your contribution. So if you're putting in X amount of dollars, they may decide to match 3, 4, or maybe 5%. But keep in mind, when you're no longer employed with that employer, you can no longer make contributions. Thus, you can no longer get matched on anything. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, looking at the investment choices. So one of the downsides of 401ks is that you usually only have a few options to choose from as far as different investment funds. So looking at the investment funds that you have access to and seeing if they're really a good fit. Some ways to do that is taking the ticker symbol. So you could even copy the fund name and just do a Google search, and you'll find out more information about that fund and really what they specialize in. In addition to that, low fees. So you want to make sure that you're looking at the fees inside of your 401k, specifically the fees inside of each one of the investments that are inside of your 401k. So again, a quick Google search on the funds that are inside of your 401k will really allow for you to find out how much it's really costing you. Outside of that, going on to number 2. So number 2, rolling it over to your new employer plan. Now, you will first want to make sure that your new employer does offer a 401k plan. And so obviously you could roll that on over. And the nice thing is that at least it's consolidated. I always like to, for the most part, recommend consolidating to keep things simple. I can't tell you how many times that I met with a client and we're talking about an old 401k and come to find out the beneficiary on it is their old spouse, right? So they had a divorce and that was a long time ago. So in that case, if they were to pass away, that money would have gone to the old spouse, right? And so you want to make sure that beneficiaries are up to date. So moving it over to your new plan is definitely an option. But again, you want to make sure that the investment options are good, and then also the fees that are associated with each of those investment choices, that they have low fees. So again, some things to look at and some things to consider. Moving on to number 3, opting for an IRA rollover. So again, IRA stands for an individual retirement account. So you could take your funds from your previous 401k and roll it on over to Charles Schwab or Fidelity or one of these other investment firms. But the nice thing with doing that is that you do have more flexibility in terms of investment options. So a lot of times you have a full landscape of how you can invest your funds and different investment choices. And a lot of times you may have access to lower fees. And so again, something to look at for your specific individual situation. In addition to that, you also have the option to do a Roth conversion, right? Which I'll be talking in more detail in a couple of slides. But you at least have the option to roll it over or move funds piece by piece into a Roth. And so again, I'll be talking about more about that. But the nice thing is that there's some unique tax benefits there. Cashing it out, number 4. So I usually never recommend to cash out your 401k if you could help it. I know that when you're in a tough situation or when time is of the essence, it may be very attractive to just take those funds. But keep in mind, if you are under 59 and a half, so 59 and a half, if you're under 59 and a half, then you're going to have what's called an early withdrawal penalty. And that just means that the IRS will charge you 10% of the amount that you take out. They will charge you a 10% penalty for taking those funds early before 59 and a half. So you will want to keep that in mind. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is that if it is a traditional 401k, so meaning that if you have not paid taxes on these funds, guess what? When you take out those funds, again, you're going to have to pay taxes on that money. And so it's added on to your income. So for example, let's say that you made $100,000 for that year and you cashed out your old 401k for $200,000 and you just put it in your checking or savings or went to Vegas. Guess what? You're going to have $300,000 in earned income for that year. Right. And so this is something to take very seriously. And I always recommend, getting expert advice in the event that you were going to take that route before pulling the trigger. Option number 5. So considering a Roth conversion. Roth conversions, we absolutely love here at Grape Wealth Management. But like I mentioned earlier, it's not for everyone. So a Roth conversion, the way that it works is you're essentially taking funds from a traditional 401k, right? So a pre-taxed retirement account, and you're moving it into an after-tax retirement account. Now, when you do that, you're taxed on whatever amount you moved from the pre-tax bucket into the after-tax bucket. So if you moved over $50,000, well, guess what? Now that $50,000 is going to have to be added to your income. So things to keep in mind. Now, normally with the Roth conversion, there's a lot of different considerations. You want to look at your income for that year, what tax bracket you're in. A lot of times it makes sense to break it down into multiple pieces. So it may say, okay, over the next 5 years, we're going to take, 1/5 of the retirement account and we're going to convert it year after year. And so that makes it so that there's not a very large one-time tax consequence. So again, before doing a Roth conversion or going down that strategy, I highly recommend speaking to an expert and really considering your specific scenario and specific tax consequences. Now, the benefit is that once it gets into that after-tax Roth bucket, from there on, all the growth that you experience, so if you invested $100,000 and that $100,000 grew to $300,000 by the time that you were going to access it for retirement and start to use those funds, the good news is that $200,000 gain, you no longer have to worry about taxes. And so you don't have to pay taxes on any of that money as you're taking out those funds. And so that's the reason why Roth conversions are incredible, and they can work very well if it makes sense for your specific scenario. All right, number 6, seeking expert guidance. Now, as I mentioned, when looking at all of the different routes that you have, it's really important to look at your individual situation. In some scenarios, it may be that you're retiring at that time and you're going to drop into a very low tax bracket. And so some of the tax consequences maybe are not a concern for you, right? But you will want to look at that to make sure that that is in line with your specific scenario. And that is the reason why I recommend seeking expert guidance. Here at Grape Wealth Management, again, we are a fiduciary advice only firm. So our focus is giving you advice specifically in regards to retirement. It's just very important that whatever you do, wherever you go, that you get expert guidance, or at least take your time and go through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that whatever choice you make is in line with your individual situation. All right. So again, guys, if you have any questions at all, feel free to comment below. If you would like for us to look at your individual situation, feel free to go to investgrape.com here at the bottom, and you could schedule a meeting right there on the spot with us. But until next time, happy retirement, and thank you for joining me on Uncorking Your Retirement.